So here we are. Here we are. We'll just give another 30 seconds for those latecomers. L'chaim, l'chaim. Is it polite to eat my shake in my Zoom class? That was delicious. That should get me through. All right, let's get organized. Everyone, for our book club, The Twinkle in Your Eye. So we're going to start, we're going to just review a teeny weeny bit, and we're going to start on page 44. Somebody asked what book, who came late last time. The Twinkle in Your Eye by Rabbi Yitzchak Ginzburg, Kabbalah Remedies for Preserving Youth and Memory. Sounds cool. Okay, so this is our fifth class, and we're on page 44. We're just going to review a teeny bit. We'll wait till everybody catches their breath. People are appearing. It is exciting, and you get a lot of extra credit if you put your camera on. Because then oh yes, Cody and Chaya and Sarah, extra credit. Come on. Put those cameras on. I become much smarter and, and more sociable. Yes, that's the idea. Jill and Dina. Oh, good. I'm starting to feel like we can start. This is a good group. But if you put your camera on, it's a big mitzvah. You're adding to the joy in the universe. Yes, which is a good thing to do. Speaking for the universe. Okay, I shouldn't laugh at my own jokes that aren't even funny. Okay, we're on page 44, the second paragraph. This is just the review part. So he was just saying, Rabbi Yitzchak was saying before this that, about that black hole. So once something goes past the event horizon, that's the edge of the black hole, it falls in, but an antiparticle still glows outside. Okay, let's see where we're going with this bit of mushal from quantum physics. Positive memories all too often take a back seat in our minds. And it is especially important to realize that the most valuable things are liable to fall into the black hole of forgetfulness. So this is all going to be explained. One of the ideas that we're working towards and which we're being empowered to do, you might have noticed from last week, is to decide what we want to remember and what we want to forget. So we're going to be learning how to do that. Didn't you always want to do that? I did. As Tehillim, as the book of Psalms suggests, Tehillim 88, verses 11 through 13, will you work wonders for the dead? Will those buried arise to thank you? Will they speak of your loving kindness in the grave, of your faithfulness in their shrouds? Will your wonders be seen in the darkness and your justice in the land of oblivion? End quote. Let's see where we're going from here. If we make sure to take care, now the word to take care in Hebrew is lahi zaher, the root of Zion Hey Resh, which means glow. It's also Zohar, to be careful, to take care. If we make sure not to take care, not to lose sight of what truly counts, Hashem's loving kindness, Hashem's faithfulness, Hashem's wonders, and Hashem's charity, they become the antiparticles that glow at the event horizon. In other words, we want to remember God. It makes a huge difference. I don't know, I'm laughing and crying. It does let's confess, it makes a big difference when we remember God. Life is tough when we don't remember God. I mean, not only do we want to remember God, we want to remember Hashem's loving kindness, His emunah, His wonders, and His tzedakah, and they can glow. We don't want to forget that. It's like, and we're being empowered to remember this. I think that's a very important idea, which I've mentioned before. Like reading this, it's not just like technical information. By reading this together, we're being empowered to be able to really take these ideas to heart. This suggests that another antidote for memory loss is to study the classic Kabbalah text of the Zohar, which again is Zayin Hey Reish, that word, which literally means glow. The Torah's inner dimension, is revealed in the Zohar and other Kabbalah and Hasidic texts, is the most essential revelation of Hashem's infinite light in the world. It's saying that Kabbalah and Hasidus is Pnimius HaTorah, the inner light of Torah. This is where God is revealed. I mean, this is it. This is it in our book. We have it. This is a book of Pnimius HaTorah. This is where Hashem's infinite light is revealed in this world. So we're very lucky to be sitting here together, reading it. Okay, so the next little subchapter is called a light bulb moment. As we grow older, we can expect to be distracted more easily. Perhaps our attention span gets shorter, and all too often words are on the tip of our tongue. If we only know how to utilize this type of forgetfulness, please underline that if you have a book, utilize this type of forgetfulness. It can be very positive. This is saying we can use forgetfulness in a positive way. Would you have thought of that? I wouldn't have. So if we only know how to utilize this type of forgetfulness, it can be very positive. In fact, by taking our minds off something we have lost, we might actually find it again. Okay, so this is an idea from our sages. The sages teach us, this is in Gemara Sanhedrin, page 97a, which is actually a very interesting part of the Gemara. It's chapter 11 of Sanhedrin. It's all about Mashiach and Techiyas HaMesim. Good topics to learn about. So the sages teach us that there are three things that unexpectedly happen when our minds are distracted. The first is the appearance of Mashiach. That was close. Okay, I'm turning it off more seriously. So sorry. Modern technology. Okay, so what are three things that happen when our minds are distracted? The first is the appearance of Mashiach. The second is making a discovery, finding a lost object, unearthing a treasure. And the third is being stung by a scorpion. So we'll just go for the first two, but Refuah Shalema for the boy who was stung by a scorpion today in the north of Israel. In Kabbalah, distracting one's mind corresponds to rising to Keter, the superconscious crown with which the woman of valor adorns her husband. Ashes Chayil Eteres Philos. Let's go over the sentence. Distracting one's mind. The Hebrew for distracting one's mind, Yasiach Das. We've spoken about this many times. We have to be able to push things out of our mind. We spoke about some things we can do it by ourselves, like I'm driving myself crazy. It's not a mitzvah. I am good at it, but it's not a mitzvah. I can push it out of my mind. If I can't, Yasiach with a sin to speak about it to one's friend. And the idea of Keser, the superconsciousness, is that it's higher than logic. In other words, we're moving out of the realm of logic, and we're going up from wisdom to Keser, a level higher than logic. And the woman of valor crowns her husband with this. From there, Mashiach appears, the lost king whose speedy arrival we all anticipate. In other words, from this getting out of this logical state of mind, transcending logic. Anytime we bear a paradox, we're transcending logic, by the way, because logic can't bear a paradox. Logic, it's only when we reach a higher level than logic that we can bear all the paradoxes in life. So many paradoxes. Okay, so we're in the middle of page 45 of our book, The Twinkle in Your Eye, for all those turning on now. So graceful aging means becoming more feminine by forgetting the negative aspects of life and remembering all of life's positive aspects. So, this comes back to thought management. We have to decide what we want to forget and what we want to remember, what we want to spend time remembering, and what's better to forget. The focus of our prayers as we approach old age should be to forget all life's conflicts and pain and retain only sweet memories. So it says this is something to daven for. I mean, this is something we empower each other by learning this together, by Rabbi Yitzchak teaching this, but it's something to pray for. We want to pray that we should forget conflicts and pain of our life rather than going over it and over it again and over it again. It's because it is a little boring. We've done it a lot. And to retain sweet memories, something to daven for. Something to ask Hashem for. It seems reasonable. Doesn't it sound much better? Retain those sweet memories. Indeed, releasing all our redundant baggage that we have accumulated throughout our lives is a key to a healthy old age. Now, isn't that interesting? How to stay healthy as one ages is to release the redundant baggage. And again, this is something to daven for, and it's something that we're empowering ourselves and each other as we learn this together. This is particularly important in the family context, when sometimes memories of the pain our spouse has caused tend to last longer than our memories of the good things they have done. So we have to be careful there, right? We don't want to be the kind of people who only remember the painful things that our spouse and family members have done to us, and we forget that what the nice things they did. It's a tendency to do that. It's human. So this is why we're learning this book. We're learning that there's a piece of will here. Like, we're not just, like reacting to life. We can actively use our will to practice thought management. Okay, the bottom paragraph on 45. As we age, rising above our personal pain by using our feminine quality to forget all the events that have upset us will eventually bring us to the point where we are momentarily distracted from expecting Mashiach's imminent arrival to redeem us from our pain, the pain of exile, allowing him to finally appear in the world. The principal issue is to always remember Hashem himself. Okay, so what is it saying here? Let's go over this. This is something, so there's a very long sentence here. It's almost like Yiddish, it's so long. Okay, the bottom line really, because so the principal issue is to always remember Hashem himself. I mean, this is something we're davening for. This is something, we want it. To remember Hashem himself. And but that our we have to be distracted from expecting Mashiach to redeem us from our pain, the pain of exile. Like, there's more to Mashiach than his redeeming us from the pain of exile. There's like godliness will be revealed, oneness will be revealed. We'll see how we're all really one. Now that sounds exciting. Hashem is one. Like, Mashiach is actually more than redeeming us from the pain of exile, that we could put that aside and always remember Hashem. And this is what allows Mashiach to come, a fascinating idea, Mashiach's imminent arrival. And it will redeem us from our pain, and much more than that. So always remember Hashem. I guess we can't say, just speaking about Hashem, that we're in Hashem's presence, I feel much better. Okay, now this is very exciting. We're starting chapter 4 on page 47, entitled Growing Old Gracefully. Now that sounds good. Older, wiser, and more compassionate. Although one would expect the members of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish Supreme Court, to be old and wise as can be, the rule is that the aged are not eligible for appointment. We're going to explain this. It's from Sanhedrin 36b. Rashi explains that this is because the old have forgotten the sorrows of bringing up children, and they lack compassion. Forgetting the sorrows of child rearing could be an indication of our wisdom, knowing how to forget life's most difficult challenges. However, this does not mean disengaging from our own youthful days. So forgetting the sorrows of our youth doesn't mean disengaging from our own youthful days. So we're going to get to a great paradox here. The Rambam, this is in the Rambam's Laws of Sanhedrin, he draws a distinction between being elderly and possessing white hair. He states that though an elderly individual should not be appointed, each member of the Sanhedrin must be at least white-haired. Now here's something here. What is it saying? They shouldn't be elderly, but their hair should have turned white. This relates to the secret of the white beard discussed in chapter 1 and the paradoxical ability to incorporate feminine and masculine, youth and old age. So we want to incorporate in our personality and our beings, youth and old age. And when he said this relates to the secret of the white beard, I wasn't clear about what that was. So I found it on page 27. It's just a paragraph. If you have the book, please turn to page 27 with me. Okay, middle of page 27. Finally, the white beard that we aspire to in old age represents the united consciousness that Avraham Avinu, Avram our father, instilled in his followers. Havaya, God, world, Hashem, Kel, Olam. That Hashem is all and all simultaneously all is God. Right? It's a famous Yiddish saying, Gott is Alts and Alts is God. God is everything and everything is God simultaneously. Through his perception of the Almighty as God world, who unites space, time, and consciousness, that's Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. Hashem unites space, time, and consciousness. Abraham taught us how to be in an ongoing state of Rutzo B'Shov, to run upward towards God, to the spiritual heights, and to return downward at the same time. To come down into the world, come back to the world to do our shlichus, our mission in this world, to be up and unite with Hashem and to come back down into this world. That is the secret of the white beard. Okay, so now we're back on page 47. So again, this paradox of uniting youth and old age. So we're going to talk more. What does this mean? It does sound very interesting, though it is a paradox, which means it's above logic. We have to go up to Keter, to the crown, to really experience it. More simply, the members of the Sanhedrin should not be youngsters, but they should be young in spirit. So this is the idea, young in spirit. That's why it's good to spend time with young people. It helps keep us young in spirit, right? In temple times, the time of the Beit Midrash, there was obviously something contagiously youthful about the Sanhedrin, a very interesting idea. Contagiously youthful. Perhaps it had to do with their sense of humor. I'm glad they had a good sense of humor. Because when it was dismantled, when the Sanhedrin was dismantled, even the youths of the time stopped their joyful singing at feasts. That's a quote from Gemara Sota 48a. As the prophet Yirmiyahu states, the elders have ceased from the city gate, the young men from their music. That's a quote from Eicha, written by Yirmiyahu, Eicha 5:14. This brings us to a provocative question. Should we think of Hashem as young or old? Now, did you think about that? How do we perceive Hashem when we see him in the field in his crock? So you're perceiving him as young or old? Okay, we're going to get to the answer to that interesting question. And if a few people want to put on their cameras, come on. I love the people that already have their cameras on, but a few more cameras, please. Okay, so for this provocative question, should we think of Hashem as young or old? On the one hand, we know that Hashem is compassionate, as we learn from the mitzvah to emulate Hashem. Quote from the Rambam, Hilchos Deos, just as he is compassionate, you too should be compassionate. It's quoted often, this idea that we should emulate Hashem, like Hashem is compassionate. We should be compassionate. And it's actually from the Rambam, Hilchos Deos. So if elderly people lack compassion, what's going on here? Indeed, the Midrash teaches us that at the splitting of the Red Sea, Hashem appeared as a courageous warrior, which implies that he was a young man at the height of his strength. Rashi brings this down. So at the Red Sea, we have appeared to the Jewish people as a young man at the height of his strength. However, the same Midrash also states that at Har Sinai, just a few weeks later, Hashem was paradoxically old, yet full of compassion, old and full of compassion. So this is a paradox. At one point, Hashem appears like a young man in full strength, crossing the sea, and then at Har Sinai, old and full of compassion. The more we emulate Hashem's attributes in our lives, the more compassionate we become as we age. So this is something to really work on. We know we should become more compassionate. We should dive into Hashem that we should have more compassion for people. We want to have more compassion as we age, compassion for the people around us. People really need compassion. Like I'm weeping and laughing. Life is tough. People need compassion. And the Alter Rebbe says also, the first time I read it in Tanya, it really blew my mind. The Alter Rebbe says we have to have compassion for our own soul. I'd never heard that idea before, that our soul came from a very high place into a deep pit. And it's tough, the challenges, the tests, all the time, the challenges that the soul has to deal with. So we should have compassion for our own soul, and we should have compassion for the Jewish people. We should have compassion for the world. So we want to grow in compassion as we age. So again, this sentence, the more we emulate Hashem's attributes in our lives, the more compassionate we become as we age. Similarly, the higher we rise in our consciousness, the more we draw down divine compassion from above until it flows, and here's a quote from Tehillim 133, like the goodly oil upon the head that flows down to the beard. Famous line speaking about Aaron's beautiful beard. So the more we raise our consciousness, it's like this whole spectrum, even in a day, in an hour. There's, we were learning Tanya, the different characters of Tanya, the Rosh, the Beinoni, the Tzaddik, and the different levels of all of them. These aren't separate people. These are different levels of consciousness that we go through during the day. So that when we're on a higher level of consciousness, we're able to draw down divine compassion into the world. We could be a conduit for Hashem's compassion in the world. That's, each of us have our individual mission, and there are some things that are really a mission for all of us, to draw down Hashem's compassion into the world. Right. Okay. Now we're on page 48 towards the bottom. Sparkling vintage wine. Becoming more compassionate as we age echoes one of the distinctions between old Torah scholars and elders who are not Torah scholars. And Torah scholars here means students of Torah. Like right now we're learning Torah, we're students of Torah. So what's the difference between older Torah scholars and elders who are not learning Torah? Quoting the book of Iyov, the Mishnah states, this is Mishnah Kinim, ignoramuses as they get older become senile. As it says, he removes language from orators and he takes reason from the old, a quote from Iyov. But older students of Torah become more settled. But the older Torah students become, the more settled their minds become. As it says, another quote from Iyov, in the elderly is wisdom, and in the long-lived insight. So we want to gain an insight as we get older. We're learning Torah together. So this should give us, and it's something to daven for, that we should have insight. As we grow older, we should have more and more insight into our own psychology, into the world. And the more settled, in Hebrew, this word for settled mind is menuchas hanefesh, peace of mind. And I remember once, years ago, many years ago, before, over 25 years ago, I wrote to the Rabbi. I asked for a bracha for menuchas hanefesh, for peace of mind. And I gave the letter to give to the Rebbe, to my neighbor, Rabbi Groner, the Rebbe's secretary. And I asked him, is this something that it's okay to ask for a bracha from? And he said that Hasidim have been asking for a bracha for this for hundreds of years, to have peace of mind, menuchas hanefesh. Yes, so this is the story. So we want to have menuchas hanefesh as we age, and we want to have insight. This is what to daven for. This is what to include in our davening. And if we're writing for brachas, it's good to write upon to the Rebbe before Rosh Hashanah, to write a letter to the Rebbe. It's very easy to do. You can go to Ohel Chabad, and it says send a letter to the Rebbe, and it's brought every so often. Someone brings all the letters out to the Ohel, to the grave of the Rebbe. That's one way to communicate. Also, people just open a book of letters. You can do that actually online, open a book of letters of the Rebbe. But it's good to write a pidyon nefesh. It's good to write, maybe a summary of the year, what we've done and what we'd like to do, and ask for brachas for these things, that we should have peace of mind, that we should have insight as we age. Okay, to continue, top of page 49. The Zohar compares the maturation of Torah scholars, Torah students, to the winemaking process, which bears some resemblance to the extraction of olive oil from olives discussed in chapter 3. So we spoke about that. It was very exciting the first time we brought our olives to the press to see that olive oil was actually being extracted from the olives. Who would have thought it? Young Torah students may bubble with effervescent energies at the fermentation stage, but older Torah scholars are like vintage wine. As wine improves with time, all the dregs settle at the bottom, and the wine on top remains clear and stimulating. So the dregs settle to the bottom. We're not stirring up those dregs. We're letting them settle to the bottom. Even grape juice, when you make grape juice, the dregs will settle to the bottom. So too, the more proper and serious a person's attitude is to Torah, the more settled their mind becomes with age. So learning Torah, and especially as Rabbi Yitzchak said, learning Panemius HaTorah, the inner light of Torah. It's certainly true. Thought management certainly helps settle one's mind. It's very hard to have any kind of a settled mind unless we begin to manage our thoughts. This maturation process, once more, implies aspiring to femininity, as a woman is generally more settled than a man. Indeed, Yeshaya's statement, the Navi, the prophet Yeshaya states, the beauty of a human being is to settle at home, alludes specifically to the settled quality of the woman of the house. So this is a quality that a woman will bring, we hope, we ask for brachas, that we can bring a settled mind. Is a great bracha to bring to one's house. We can understand that, to any situation, to any relationship. But being settled does not mean being stuck in one's ways. Now, there's an important point. We don't want to be stuck in our ways. Rigidity in old age can be compared to wine that has become stagnant and all the alcoholic potency has evaporated. Such wine will obviously not produce the anticipated twinkle in one's eye. So we want that aged, well, we want that twinkle. Right, that twinkle in one's eye, it's a very attractive quality. If people like to see a twinkle, get those twinkles. Here's a book, How to Get the Twinkles Going. How to Get Twinkles in Your Eye, like vintage wine. Okay. So rigidity is not a good quality. Beware of rigidity. Okay. So thus, the secret of growing old gracefully is to retain our joyful, innovative style of Torah study. Like vintage wine, Torah students continue to improve with age. So when we're learning Torah, like now, we want to have a joyful, innovative style. Yes. Hey, joyful, innovative. I hope everyone, yes, that's it. So these are the people with cameras. I can see they're smiling. Please put on your cameras. Okay. So we want to have that. This is joy. It's wonderful. I'm so happy we're learning this all together with this lovely group of people. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Each face adds to my joy and innovative style. Okay, and to improve with age. What a great idea. Joy, innovation, settled minds. We can improve with age. It's so hopeful. Okay, here's another interesting idea, the bottom of page 49. Hasidus further teaches that our connection with the Torah should be characterized by selflessness. This is bittul it's speaking about. As mentioned earlier, the Torah is a manifestation of Hashem's wisdom. And that's a basic idea, that the Torah flows from Hashem's wisdom. The inner motivation of the sphere of Chachma, wisdom, is selflessness. I just have to say, this week is going to be Chai Elul, to give us Chayas and Elul. It's, as we know, it's the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, the birthday of the Alter Rebbe. It's also the yurtzeit of the Maharal of Prague. So if you want to light a candle for the Maharal on Chai Elul, when the Alter Rebbe says in the beginning of Tanya that it's based on teachers and books, it says in the notes that he's referring to the Maharal and the Shalom. So the Maharal is a big part in Hasidus, and yes. So the Baal Shem, back to Chai Elul. Okay, so we mentioned the Baal Shem Tov. One of the revolutions of the Baal Shem Tov is that it was thought by many people until that time that there was a line of Hashem, Torah, Jewish people, and that the Jewish people connected with Hashem through the Torah, so that you had to be a Torah Jew to have this connection with Hashem. And then the Baal Shem Tov came and said it was a triangle, Hashem, Torah, Jewish people. So there's a direct connection between Jewish people and Hashem. It doesn't have to go through the Torah. We mustn't, it's so important on Shlichus, it's so important in reaching out to Jewish people to remember that every Jewish person has a connection with Hashem. It doesn't have to be through Torah. It's considered revolutionary because the Baal Shem Tov saw the value and the preciousness of every Jew. Right. Okay, so we're saying, as mentioned earlier, the Torah is a manifestation of Hashem's wisdom. The inner motivation of the sphera of Chachma is selflessness. So bittul, from this charts in some of Rabbi Yitzchak's books of the sphere, the spheros, Hachma, Das, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, etc. And he says what the panemius, the inner part of what each sphera is. And the inner part of wisdom, of Chachma, is bittul, selflessness. A very interesting idea. To learn something, we have to put ourselves aside, or our own opinion will block us from learning. To integrate the Torah's insights, we need to identify our own wisdom with that sense of selflessness, with bittul. We achieve this by diverting our minds from the follies of physical reality, which cause us to forget Hashem. So we can say a lot about this subject. Let's go over it. Diverting our minds. Again, diverting our minds means deciding what to forget. It's like such an important idea. I felt between this week, last Sunday and this Sunday, just because we were talking about it, that I felt some gain in my thought management. We do, meditation is popular, but the basic to any type of meditation is thought management. There's no way to meditate unless we're deciding that we want to manage our thoughts. So we need to know what to divert our minds from. So we achieve this by diverting our minds from the follies of physical reality, which means things that drive us crazy. And did you ever notice that something could drive you crazy 1 week, and by the next week, it doesn't seem like anything. We could see that it was just a triviality. How can I have been so upset and worked up and driven myself crazy when this was just average thing in life, you know? Okay, so we're turning the page. And so we want to divert our minds from what causes us to forget Hashem. Again, it always comes back to remembering Hashem, remembering when Hashem's presence. I mean, every time I say, let's remember we're in Hashem's presence, I feel so much better. It's like such an important idea. Once we have emptied ourselves of superficial thoughts that focus on how much we study or how well we understand it, we become a suitable receptacle to be inspired by divine wisdom. So once we put our distractions aside, we put ourselves aside. Remember we spoke about this idea of hiskafia and hiskafia. So hiskafia, you know, which somebody could think could mean, you know, it does mean when you want to have 2 scoops of ice cream and you only have 1 scoop of ice cream. It does mean that. But it means deeper things than that. It means putting the ego aside and putting Hashem in the center of our consciousness, which is a meditation in itself. So once we have emptied ourselves of thoughts that focus on ourself, like, isn't this nice? I'm learning, check off, I did my chitas, whatever it is. Instead, we put ourselves aside and we want to become a vessel, an empty vessel. That's the bittul. To be inspired by divine wisdom. We want to be inspired by divine wisdom because it's joyful to be inspired. We have energy. It's so important. Life is so different when we're feeling inspired. L'chaim. The right value system, according to the Torah, paves the way for settling down with age. The right value system. It's interesting, the right value system. They say that Avram Avinu, our father Abraham, founded ethical monotheism. We spoke about the monotheism. It's not just that we believe in one God, but all is God. All is God and God is all. But it's also there's that ethical part, the right value system. It is very helpful. It is very helpful to have the right value system. And it paves the way again to the settled mind that we want. That's one of the benefits of being a moral person. It helps give you a settled mind if we have to sell it on the market. For those who want a settled mind. Peace of mind. I don't think when I was a child growing up, I even would have known what peace of mind was. It wasn't a concept. It wasn't something I heard about. I didn't know about it. So peace of mind is just such a great idea. It's worth having the right value system. Although some people might feel that they're losing their minds when they start forgetting simple things such as names and addresses, this type of information is not essential. With the correct priorities, we can accurately identify the indispensable and concentrate on remembering only the good. What is indispensable? Indispensable, that we're in Hashem's presence, that's indispensable. And remembering only the good. Again, we're being empowered and it's something we should daven for. Life would be so much more pleasant if we remember only the good. Forgetting the bad things allows memories of the important good things in life to re-enter our consciousness at the appropriate moments. Because there's all that stuff, you know, it's all swimming around in our consciousness. We want the good things to re-enter our consciousness. We want to make a space for them where we were spending time remembering the bad things, which is so, I wouldn't laugh if I didn't have a long history of doing it. I'm only laughing at myself and crying. As we settle down, our minds become distracted from the unessential details And then in a light bulb moment of distinct memory, like a bubble bursting in a glass of sparkling champagne, Mashiach suddenly appears. L'chaim, l'chaim. So we're making a space in our consciousness for Mashiach, our personal Mashiach consciousness, and that you bring Mashiach consciousness to the world. So I want to say just a couple of more words about Chai Elul in our remaining minutes here together. I'm glad we got up to here, a good stopping point. So Chai Elul, Chai, it's the 18th. It's the 18th day of Elul, and 18 is Yud and Ches, or Ches and Yud, which spells out Chai, life. So it gives us life and all the avoda of Elul. The Rebbe would always bring on Chai Elul. It's a great time to be re-inspired. It's this week. Now we're going from the 14th into here in Israel. We're going from the 14th into the 15th. It's still the 14th in America. We have a few more days till Chai Elul. And it should add chayas to all the avoda of Elul. And the avoda of Elul is returning to Hashem, coming closer to Hashem. He's out there in the field with his Crocs on. You could see him as young or old or anyway, and he's waiting for us. And I saw something beautiful, that he wants this relationship with us as much as we want this relationship with him. He wants us, he's waiting for us. He's waiting for us to establish a good, close relationship. This is what we want. This is what he wants. And Chai Elul gives chayas and all of this. There's like 12 more days between Chai Elul, from Chai Elul to Rosh Hashanah. And they say each day is like a tikkun for one of the 12 months of the year. Like on Chai Elul, we can do a tikkun for last Tishrei and then go through the months of the year. So it's a very exciting time. The plot gets thicker. Hashem's revelation becomes stronger. And we should do it with simcha. I want to bless everyone that we should get close to Hashem, and we should do it with simcha and joy, the joy of reconnecting, the essence of our soul, reconnecting with Hashem.